Hey, I'm on the edge of my seat here, back again with another brand new video, and today I will be no damaging all the boss fights in Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. Though this first fight isn't really a boss fight per se, it's honestly more of a group encounter. Like, one of these enemies has a bit of a health boss, like a little bit of like a boss health bar, but he's not really a boss per se. It's very little health, like this is more a tutorial fight, you know, you don't even have all your styles unlocked, and well, we're still going to be fighting a couple official boss fights even without the second style unlocking just yet. And this game has made the somewhat very misguided decision to have no New Game Plus. So yes, this entire playthrough was done on a new game. In fact, because I heard ahead of time that this game wasn't going to include New Game Plus, I actually decided that, you know what, I'm going to be no damaging all these boss fights on my first playthrough. I actually streamed the entirety of this game. It's pretty much in 14 parts of varying lengths. One of the parts is 11 hours. And I will say right now, this fight was very hard, though I do believe I did not damage it on stream. I kind of like did this section on stream, and then like I had a save file to return to this section if I ever wanted to, like, you know, return and actually do it. Like, the reason it's so hard is just because like the enemy AI in this game is like way more aggressive than like the previous games. You play something like Lost Judgment, and the enemies like take their turns attacking you. You know, like one attacks you, everyone else waits their turn. This game is not the case. Like every enemy is trying to like gang up on you, even if you don't have like the charismatic photo item with you. And that photo does exist in this game, so if you want it to be more aggressive, you can make it more aggressive, but this is the last game you want to do that with. Like, enemies are just way more aggressive. Like, they don't attack you one by one, they attack you like 2 by 3 by 4. So you really have to play it more safe. Especially early games, since you don't have really many upgrades and you only have 2 dodges instead of 3, because even with 3 agent style dodges, the dodges are not great in this game. The Yakuza games finally getting like simultaneous releases when they come out in Japan is great. It's fantastic. I mean, I'm glad that I can actually play Like a Dragon Gaiden in English, not have to like wait a whole year for it to be in English, because, you know, importing and playing in Japanese would be a less fun way to play it. But now that they are actually getting simultaneous releases, I think we're getting some of the bad habits of their business dealings in Japan. Like, you know, they'll pull like some shitty DLC practices in Japan, but once they release it in English a year later with like the earlier titles, then, you know, they'll give us all that stuff for free. You know, Yakuza 7, when they released in Japan, you had to wait like a whole year to get like New Game Plus. However, in a whole year, the English release just gave us New Game Plus for free. However, now we have this game which has no New Game Plus, and Yakuza 8, I am hearing, isn't going to have New Game Plus for free. You're going to have to buy it as DLC because it's releasing in the same day as in Japan. Now for this boss fight, you see I kind of went a little cheap with it. I did a heat action, kind of hit him a little bit, and then here I did that heat action because, you know, he's still preparing his super mode. And I didn't even let him do like a super mode attack. See, he went into heat, he did a little taunt, so I hit him with a heat action. He still has to do the mortal reversal after I hit him with the heat action, and now we end up here. That's actually something very useful for the boss fights, is pretty much when they're entering heat mode, like in the later boss fights they won't do this, but when they're entering heat mode, if you land a heat action on them before they do like their mortal attack, then they still have to do their mortal attack after the fact. Now mind you, it's not exactly a science, because sometimes they'll just not do their mortal attack if you deal like too much damage to them before they do the mortal attack, so watch out for that. This boss fight, remember that flying knee attack? It's the worst attack in the game. Also, by the way, if you're wondering what just happened there, I picked up a weapon, and with this game's new weapon pickup animations with agent style, it was just like kick it behind him. That actually counts as an attack, so you can actually hit an enemy with that. So honestly, very, very hard to pull off. Honestly, it was complete luck that I actually hit him like that and he didn't hit me back. But now we're about to unlock the Yakuza style. Yakuza 6 combat, but surprisingly slower. I don't know why. Yeah, like this game, from what I've played, it's a complete mixed bag. I mean, I do end up really liking this game. It's not a bad Yakuza game, though it is pretty flawed in a couple weird-ass areas. And for this boss fight here, it kind of starts off as a tutorial, but then you actually have to fight him. And what I'm about to do here is very risky, but basically, you have access to the Dragon Rush thing from Yakuza 6, but now it's like a little bit more truncated, a little bit more like spectacle filled. You know, you get these like nice fiery punches. I like that a lot. And here I messed up the kick heat action. Yeah, we have to do like those little really quick button presses. And with the heat I have left, I'm going to do this again. Once again, very risky, but very cool to pull off. However, once we get access to like this game's like full juggle kit, we can actually do that like little rush thing with far more consistency. And here I'm actually going to try to do some juggles. For this first boss fight, I kind of have an approach which I'm not sure is 100% consistent, but it works for this first fight. It maybe won't work for later fights. But basically, I block all the boss fight's attacks, and once he's done with an attack, I just kind of do this thing where I go with Yakuza style light attack, charge like the heavy attacks, you know, like 1, 2, and the second one's good, yeah, like that. And that's pretty much how I do the fight after doing those Yakuza charge attacks, you know, where I just beat the shit out of him. I mean, it might not work every now and then, like the boss fight might end up dodging instead of blocking at the exact right point, because what you want to do is you want to break his guard with the first heavy attack, and then with the second heavy attack, that's how you juggle him. And here we're about to fight a bunch of mini bosses in the first long battle of the game, and like, I really do say this game is a mixed bag, because like there's so many things where it's like, why did they do that? Why did they do that? And then there's other things where I'm like, wow, that is a great addition, that's a great improvement, or I really like that, I hope future Yakuza games, you know, include that. And one of the things which I'm really happy about with this game is that the long battles actually feel like long battles now, which, you know, I mean, Yakuza 6 had good long battles, Kiwami 2 had good long battles. It's the Judgment games which kind of messed it up for me. Like, Lost Judgment is probably my favorite Yakuza game, but one of the things I don't like about it is the way it structures its long battles. It just does not compute with me. Because like what Lost Judgment did is that pretty much like the way the long battles work in that game is that you fight a group of enemies, and then when you're done fighting a group of enemies, there's like a huge fade out, like as if the fight already ended, and then like the game kind of like puts you into like open world maneuvering, because the Yakuza games have always worked like this. Pretty much there's two styles of play. There's the style of play where you're moving around in the open world, and then there's the style of play where you're in combat. They are different because you can't do the things that you can do in the open world in the combat mode, and in the combat mode you're also kind of limited in how you approach stuff, you know, in the open world. You do have more options in combat, but there's a few unique things that you can't do in combat that you can do in the open world. But the way that long battles used to work is that pretty much when you're doing the long battle, you would always be in combat mode. Yeah, these mini bosses are not very interesting. I'm just kind of like cheesing them or just doing a juggle, which instantly deletes their health bar. Like the way this game changed juggles, it also needs some discussion. I'll probably get to that later. But there's not much interesting happening here. I think you can kind of get the gist. Well, okay, one interesting thing is that the extreme heat mode with Agent, the second hit of that combo tends to juggle enemies like 9 out of 10 times if the first hit misses. So you really have to miss the first hit of like your extreme heat mode like Agent combo, and the second hit most of the time will launch them if you're close to the enemy. It's like weird. If you're too far away from, if like your second hit is like too far away from the enemy, it won't juggle them. You kind of have to like land that second hit super close where like your whole body contorts into them. That's how the juggle happens. And here we're about to fight this fucking guy. I hate him so much. Like, he's such an annoying fight. Also, Pious Lee did do a better no damage of this guy, but on the first playthrough, holy shit, this guy. Also, since it was my first playthrough, there's a lot of tech which there's a lot of moves which I didn't know were that useful. Like, there's a thing you can do that's really dope with the Agent Light Grab, which I won't do until the end of the video, where if you grab an enemy and you do a light attack, it just always works. Because grabs in this game are also very finicky, like more finicky than some of the other games, which is weird because Yakuza grabs have always been finicky, and this is probably one of the most finicky like grabbing enemies games, just because of some new additions. And I forgot about the previous topic I was talking about. Yeah, long battles. So in Lost Judgment, pretty much like you fight a group of enemies, a big fade out, you have to walk to the next group of enemies. But here, in Like a Dragon Gaiden, long battles are more like the older games. Pretty much, you're always in combat mode, you're transitioning from like scene to scene, battle to battle very smoothly. And the only interruptions are just like these cool dynamic, like, you know, continuations. I think that's how all long battles should be in Yakuza. So I'm a big fan of like this game doing that, because after Lost Judgment and the Kaito files, I thought they were never going to do that again, but no, they can do it. However, the weird thing is that in Chapter 3, you know, after having like 2 long battles previously, you know, one in Chapter 1, one in Chapter 2, which were structured more like older Yakuza games, you get to Chapter 3, and then suddenly we're doing a long battle that's structured more like Lost Judgment. You know, you fight a group of enemies, then there's a big fade out, and then you have to like walk around in like normal traversal mode. So it's like, you know, they did it right, and then for Chapter 3, they kind of did a little oopsie. I mean, honestly, I still kind of like the long battle in Chapter 3. It's cool, but, you know, it's like, you know, you were kind of doing it right before. Why change it up now? And then the weird thing is that for Chapter 4, for the long battle in that game, they go back to the more traditional Yakuza style. This fight is fucking horrible. Like, this game reminds me a lot of Super Mario Bros. 2 The Lost Levels, in that a lot of the time it kind of feels like a half-assed, like, fucking version of other Yakuza games where they have to make it artificially hard to, like, draw out the length of it, because this is a shorter Yakuza game. So, you know, like, how are we gonna make it longer? Let's put a fight like fucking this in the game. Now, mind you, when I say, like, hard, like, you know, like Super Mario Bros. 2 Lost Levels hard, this game is nowhere near as hard as that game, but for Yakuza standards, it is. And that pretty much comes with the whole thing that the Yakuza series of games are not very hard. You can just kind of stock up on healing items, and most of them just kind of, like, breeze your way through. But this fight is still bullshit, and if you're no damaging, oh fuck, this game I think is probably one of the most hateful games made towards no damagers of this series. Like, no new game plus, so you can't just, like, you know, replay the game with all your abilities and no damage upgrades, which this game does allow you to, you know, pretty much go through it without any damage upgrades. The upgrade system is very focused on side quests though, so doing main story isn't going to net you much reward, though to be fair you can say that about a lot of Yakuza games. And in this game, I guess they kind of designed it that way because, once again, it is one of the shorter Yakuza games. It was made in 6 months. That was information revealed kind of recently by the developers, that they actually put this together in 6 months. That it was originally going to be like a DLC for Yakuza 7 or something like that, but then they kind of like designed it as their own game because they felt that the story was engaging enough to be its own game. So they released it for a bit of a cheaper price, $50. Though honestly, it's a little closer to $30 maybe. I wish they released it at the same price they released like Kiwami 1 when it dropped in like English. But this fight sucks, and I have a cheap strategy for it, but it was still a pain in the ass to pull off. Number one, the crowds are very annoying. Like, the crowds by themselves are kind of infuriating to deal with. I do use my extreme heat mode to deal with most of them, but you know, you still have to be careful with the extreme heat mode because, you know, you can like do an attack and it's so flashy that you can't see that the enemy just like clipped you. So you still have to be careful in extreme heat mode. And once I run out of extreme heat mode, I like to use the Yakuza style to like deal with enemies in a group, because the agent style, it's like so flashy and cool, but you know, it's like you'll always tend to get hit because like agent style is like animated so beautifully. It's like beautiful to watch, but like it's so flashy that like in the utility of it isn't as good as the Yakuza style. The Yakuza style is just like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like very quick punches. You can get out of it quickly, and also I think the Yakuza dodge has more iframes. Because like the agent dodge, you know, it's like so beautifully animated. You can see like Kiryu like fucking like covering his like head when he dodges away. It's like he's trying to like preemptively like block any attacks coming to him. I love that detail. But it's like it feels like it has no iframes. Like, I'm sure the agent style dodge does have some iframes, but it just kind of reminds me of like Kiwami 2 and Yakuza 6. It just kind of feels like shit to dodge away from enemies because they just run up to you and like you get hit anyways, or you try to dodge to their side and like their attack just has way too wide of like a grasp, way too wide of like an area of effect that you still get hit anyways. Oh, and then there's like this thing where whenever you dodge an agent style, like it goes into slow-mo and you can like react. That's a whole other like thing I should really get into. Oh yeah, by the way, for this fight in specific, I actually upgraded my attack to like twice. In the previous fights, I had no attack upgrades, and in every single fight after this one, I won't have attack upgrades. However, I will be utilizing gear to get more attack for some of the more ridiculous encounters later down the line. But yeah, my strategy with the previous fight is that once I get rid of all the enemies, I'm actually going to use the wire against the gun boss fight. Since the gun boss fight likes to run away as his main attack thing, you know, to shoot me, he'll run away, I'll use the wire, I'll pull him in, and when I pull him in, he's like stunned enough that like I can do 3 Yakuza taunts to build up heat, because trying to fight him by like, you know, hitting him is just not going to work. He has counters against it, he could just like shoot you. So instead, I'm just going to like do heat actions on the gun guy to be very cheap. So you can just kind of taunt to get heat, and then when you have enough heat, you do a heat action. And also, if you want to do the kick heat action, you can pull him in with the wire, and he'll be stunned long enough that you can kick him, and then do the kick heat action, and that is what I did. However, there was another thing you have to watch out for with the previous boss fight, or just this game's combat in general, but I forgot what I was going to say. So yeah, and I'll be talking about the positives and negatives in great detail about this game. And one of the positives is that you can actually turn off like the little buttons on the bottom right corner of the screen. Like in the beginning of this video, you can kind of see like there were buttons like telling you what each button does. You know, like square does a light attack, you know, like triangle does a finisher attack. In Lost that was like something Lost Judgment introduced, and you couldn't turn it off. It was pretty much stuck there at the bottom right corner of the screen, no matter how experienced you were at the game. But in Like a Dragon Gaiden, they got rid of that. You can actually turn those little features off if you don't want to be like, you know, what's the word? Patronized. Because I know how to play these games. I don't need those buttons on the, like, the bottom right corner of the screen. So I got rid of them. And I think that's a great thing which Gaiden introduced. However, a big negative is heat in this game. It is incredibly hard to get. It's honestly a lot like Ishin, where like your heat gain is so slow unless you like do some modifier. For one, being drunk and having a couple upgrades does let you like build up heat very nicely if you attack the enemy in the Yakuza style. Also, I should probably talk more about combat tech because I just beat up the fuck out of like Watase, the fake one here, and I haven't talked about what I did. Like I started the fight off with a heat action that you can only do when you're on the ground. And the Wire has introduced a way to do this safely, like with everyone except the final boss. So you pretty much like fail like to pull the boss fight in, and that'll drop you to the ground without taking damage, and then you can do that heat action. And then from there, I did the dropkick heat action, which you don't need to be in extreme heat mode to do the dropkick heat action. You can just be like in normal heat, you know, like no extreme heat mode, just have heat, and you can do the dropkick heat action, so you know you can charge that up. And here for Ishin Kiryu, because he's copying like the final boss of Ishin for this fight, I did the little slow-mo thing, where you're in extreme heat mode and you dodge with the agent style, you go into slow-mo. And in the beginning of the game, before you get any upgrades, the only retaliation you have is like pressing circle and doing kind of like an armbar. However, doing that in a crowd is terrible. Like doing an armbar on like an enemy you dodge away from pretty much means that every single other enemy in the group is going to screw you over. And for boss fights, it does have some uses to do that armbar every now and then. It's kind of a nice positioning tool. You can kind of like position them away from you. It's really good for setting up like wire grabs, because sometimes if you try to like wire a boss fight and you're too close to them, they'll just like knock the wire away, and sometimes that knocking away animation actually like hits you and damages you. Also, I should probably mention, I did use gear in those previous two fights. I believe the gear I used against Watase and the fake Kiryu is the heat amulet. There's like this amulet, I forgot what it's called. It's like the Indra amulet, but I might have the name wrong. But pretty much what it does is that every time you do a heat action, instead of wasting a full like bar of heat, you only waste half. So it's pretty much like a good way to like conserve heat, since like building up heat is hell in this game, especially in early game. That's a good item just to get more heat actions out of an encounter. But I don't think I really boosted my attack with any other equipment in those previous two fights, but in this fight, I went full cheap. I have like the best attack equipment I could get at that point in the game, because this fight is fucking bullshit. The Ryuji phases aren't too bad, but then we have the second worst, like the worst second phase of all time with the Tigers. Now mind you, Ryuga Gotoku Studios have never been good designing tiger fights. You know, the one in Kiwami 2 sucks. The one in the original game is also kind of sucky. You know, it's just like, these are very awkward enemies, you can't do much with them. But here, this may be one of the worst. Like, I swear the telegraphs are even worse than before. You know, like, you'll try to attack an enemy and then they'll just, like, immediately sweep you. So I decided to summon some drones. You do have access to, like, some neat gadgets of the agent style. Gadgets can be a little situational, and honestly, I wish there were, like, smoother ways to, like, incorporate them. Well, one of them is kind of smooth. The Serpent, honestly, is pretty dope and can actually have some really good combo potential. The drones, not so much. The drones are a little awkward to, like, do combo potential with, but they're really fun to summon. The Wire can definitely set up some nice situations every now and then, but like the Wire is very, very limited against boss fights. Against like normal enemies, it's fantastic, you know, like especially when you have it fully upgraded and you can like wire 5 to 6 enemies at one time, it like kind of breaks the game. But against boss fights, it's very limiting. But it does have its uses. So yeah, no, that second phase is a complete RNG. I'm sorry. Like, if you're suffering through this phase and you watch this like video and you're like, how did I do that? Luck. It was pure luck. It fucking sucks. So that's why I'm like cheesing the hell out of this like Ryuji fight, because he does not deserve any respect whatsoever because of that tiger phase. Like, it's terrible. It's genuinely terrible. I had my fun with this game's combat system, but like it is a huge step back from Lost Judgment. I don't even know where to rank it in terms of like combat systems of like the entire series, because like there's just so many like little flaws and stuff that just seem so weird. Like, why would they mess up things that worked before? Let's talk about that agent style, because I guess like because this game was made in 6 months, certain aspects of it are a little undercooked. Like, once again, it is beautiful to witness. Like, it is beautifully animated. I don't know what martial arts he's using in the agent style. Like, it's very precise. Like, the way he moves his hands. It also moves a lot like not moves, but it plays like the Tiger style of the Judgment games, but like a smoother, lighter version of that. You know, like one press of the light attack does 2 attacks, so it kind of operates in that fashion, but it's very beautiful to look at. It's probably one of the most like beautiful looking combat styles in the Yakuza series. But holy moly, those finishers have so much commitment to them. Like, most of the agent finisher attacks, you know, like those big heavy attacks, like those ones, mind you, that one I just did right there is one of the only agent attacks where you can actually like dodge out of it once you do it. But most of the agent finisher attacks have so much commitment to them that you're never going to use them against a boss fight for a no damage. Because once you do, you're going to be stuck in place for like 4 to 5 seconds, and then like the boss fight will hit you. And especially in crowds, since like the crowds are more aggressive, and these finishers have so much commitment that once you're done with the finisher, like 2 enemies will already like get a hit on you. It's very infuriating. And also, this shouldn't even be fun for like normal play, because you know, like you'll just do it and then you'll be punished because these finishers have an insane amount of commitment. And there's like just no real safe way to set them up. And it's like like the agent style has like, you know, certain combos that can end with 3 finishers, but you're never going to, those 3 finishers are never going to see the light of day, because like you're just going to be stuck in place for like 5 to 10 seconds every time you attempt to do a finisher like that. So you're pretty much just stuck doing mostly light attacks with the agent style. So yeah, Yakuza style is pretty much the one where the heavy attacks, you can actually pull off some of the heavy attacks. So some of the triple finishers are still hard to pull off. You could set up situations where you can land some of them every now and then. Though I don't actually think I do that in this video at all, but I have done that while like streaming the game and all that. Like, I don't know, just why can't I just dodge out of my agent finisher? This is such a cool style. It's like fun to hit the enemy with. Like, so why make the finishers so commitment, like, you know, based? You know, especially with like the way Lost Judgment allows you to like dodge out of most things. Like, you know, it's just, this feels like a step back. Also, another thing that feels like a step back from Lost Judgment is that there is no consistent combo speed boost like in Lost Judgment or the Kaito files, and there's also no combo like speed upgrades. Like, I swear, like, this Yakuza style runs slower than it did in Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2 when you had full speed upgrades, which is insane. Like, mind you, I still think, like, hitting enemies is, like, a bit more, is more satisfying than it was in, like, Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2 with the Yakuza style. And you can get up to, like, some neat little combo-ish stuff with it, but, like, why is it so slow? Like, this is ridiculous. This is not the Beast style. This is the Yakuza style. It was fast in like Kiwami 2 and like Yakuza 6 by the time you were fully upgraded. Also, like, another thing is that the only time your speed gets faster in this game is when an enemy's on the ground. If you're like hitting an enemy on the ground with like the Yakuza style, you hit them faster. That's like the only way to like boost your speed from what we know. Like, maybe in like a couple months time, like people will figure out some tech to like hit the enemy faster in a way that's like always consistent and always fun. But like, why couldn't there be like an official mechanic to like boost your combo speed? Because there's no combos boost, like there's no combo speed boost upgrade. I feel like a broken record saying this, but like, it's so weird. Like, at the beginning of the game, that's your speed. At the end of the game, that's your speed, and it's not fast enough. It needs to be faster. Yeah, no, I'm not really giving many details about these mini-bosses, but then again, they all kind of play the same by a certain point, and this is maybe an issue with the game's combat system, or maybe just an issue with my no-damage approach. Oh, by the way, the reason why my voice sounds a little weird and I'm sniffing a bit is because I think I'm recovering from, like, a light cold, so, like, you know, there's, like, mucus in the system and all that, so that's why my voice is a little bit off. Maybe it's just that I streamed too much Like a Dragon Gaiden. I did kind of stream every day for about 14 days, and overall, I have spent over 86 hours with this game. Mind you, I am 100% certain that like 50 or 60 of those hours just come from retrying like no damage attempts with these boss fights. Like, holy moly. Like, no damaging games just increases the length of them by like so much. The same thing happened with me with Spider-Man 2. I spent more time with Spider-Man 2 because that game is longer, and those boss fights are longer. I genuinely think that I was more in pain trying to no damage Spider-Man 2 than I was trying to no damage this game. Because at least this game, even if I retry a boss fight like 500 times, they're usually brief. You know, 3 to 4 minutes. Well, that's a whole other issue. You'll just have to watch my Spider-Man 2 video to like, you know, learn about that. This is a really cool dynamic intro, even though this kind of looks like an Airsoft kid trying to like shoot someone. Though the Airsoft kid probably would have killed Kiryu by now. If you've played Lost Judgment, you are familiar with this combat style. It sucks, it's terrible, it's another gun style, he moves very quickly, comboing him is pointless. So I'm going to play it very cheap with the heat actions once again. Also, I should probably mention, I am not doing these mini bosses like in one go, I am doing them one by one. I have been trying to make the transitions between them kinda seamless, but if you pay attention to my health bar and heat bar, they are changing with every new encounter though. I am trying to like edit them like, you know, frame by frame so I could just transition smoothly between, you know, the dynamic intro and then like the attempt where I actually no damage them. So then boom, he enters like heat, so then I do that. And I'm not sure what he's going to do at this point, I don't remember. I think he might try to like do a mortal reversal of some sort. Oh no, he just goes into his gun mode. You see how fast those attacks are? Like just avoid that. I landed a dropkick, which was kind of risky because sometimes when you try to do the dropkick, like the enemy will just dodge it. This dynamic intro is really cool. Check this out. So as you notice there, the music kind of changes because I edited the dynamic intro to the attempt where I actually like, you know, no damage this guy, because every time you retry the fight, it plays a truncated version of the dynamic intro, which I'm not a fan of. Though I guess for some fights it's kind of necessary, and this is a pretty like long, elaborate dynamic intro, so having to watch that every time you retry the fight would get annoying, but you know, I want to include the whole thing in my video and also include the attempt where I no damage the fight. So here I do 2 heat actions, and then I go to just trying to beat up the enemies normally, and this can be very difficult because these enemies, they attack really fast, and this guy is also super fast. For this fight, I do believe I have the equipment that lets you block blades, because you can pretty much block all this guy's attacks except for one specific attack. I'm trying to actually bait it out in this fight right now. I'm trying to bait out the one. See, if he hits you with that, it will still damage you even if you have the equipment. Basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to block his attack, pretty much do a Komaki knockback so I can grab him and then do that heat action near the wall. It's a very dope heat action. I'm never doing this heat action again because it's incredibly risky, but it's super cool, and I'm glad that I got to include it once in the video. You know, for this fight, I just really wish I got a certain upgrade. That certain upgrade is pretty much like for extreme heat mode and agent style. If you dodge, you have upgrades to like add an extra attack with like square and triangle. And the triangle like dodge slow-mo attack is the most useful move in the game. It allows you to set up your juggles a lot more consistently. So it's like invaluable, and I didn't know how useful it was until way later in this video. Well, not that way later, but I definitely didn't know at this point in time. This fight took me like 4 to 5 hours to like no damage, and in the stream, I believe it's my part 4 stream, which is 11 hours. It's the longest stream of my run. I actually did push-ups like every time I failed against this fight. I actually, like, from the first stream of this game to like the 14th stream, my final stream, I actually did 100 push-ups every single day. However, for this fight in particular, I did extra, and I think I got to a point where I did a little over 300 push-ups in that day, or close to. And that is not the last time I do this throughout this run and throughout these boss fights. I'll mention the next time I did over 300 push-ups when trying to no damage a fight in this game. But yeah, no, not the most stylish attempt, but you know, it works, it was efficient, and I did it in like a decent amount of time, got to include some nice heat actions, and now he's down for the count. But I really did wish that like I knew the utility of like dodging with the heavy attack and then just throwing him down and like doing more consistent juggles. Like I wish I knew about the utility sooner, because like, you know, I just didn't know back then. And here is Hammerhead, and since there were no juggles previously, now I'm going to do a lot more juggles. So I'm going to pull him in, and see, this is completely inconsistent. I just like to do it because like it kind of works every now and then. Pull him in and then try to do a juggle that way, but it won't always work. But when it does work, boom, you deal massive damage. That's another thing. That is a huge change from Lost Judgment, which I'm not sure exactly how to feel about it. Like there's good and like bad sides to like this change. Basically, juggles, whenever you juggle an enemy, it actually deals insane damage. There's like no scaling. In Lost Judgment, when the longer a juggle went on, the less damage you dealt. To the point where, like, if you were juggling them for long enough, you were pretty much dealing, like, nipple damage. In this game, there is no scaling. You're just always dealing insane damage when you're juggling them. However, to combat this, well, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if this game is really all that successful at combating this with this change. But basically, all juggles like end after 6 seconds, at least with what we know so far. I don't know if like people are gonna figure out tech to like make juggles last longer than 6 seconds, but like after 6 seconds, the enemies just flop down to the ground. So you know you can't really get all that creative with these juggles, and also since you only have 2 styles, that also limits you a bit. But yeah, no, you can't get all that creative with this, like the little juggles and all that, just because you only have 6 seconds, and after 6 seconds, like they're pretty much down for the count and they just flop down to the ground. I'm really not a fan of this. I really wish there was like more of a middle ground between the way Lost Judgment did it and the way this game did it, because I do like that there's actually like a substantive reward for juggling enemies. I mean, in Lost Judgment there was a reward. You can kind of get more heat by doing the juggles. It's like a safe combo, and also it looks cool. You can make your juggles look really cool in Lost Judgment. But, you know, like, the damage reduction is, like, a little ridiculous. But, you know, if they didn't do damage reduction, you could, like, cheese the entire game in Lost Judgment with the juggles. But, you know, the damage reduction is, like, ridiculous after a certain point. But with this game, like, no damage reduction is also, like, insane. Though, given how short the juggles are, I'm glad the damage is there. So, you know, like, you can't really get all that stylish with the juggles, but you can deal insane damage. So juggles are super useful in this game. But a middle ground between, like, Lost Judgment's, like, pretty much freedom of expression and this game's, like, damage output would pretty much make for a wonderful combat system. So, right now we are fighting the Kiwami Demons. These are real Kiwami Demons, watch out. And we're doing this on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I actually did not know it was going to be Thanksgiving today. I thought it was going to be on the 24th because I'm considering doing a water fast. You know, like pretty much don't only drink water for 3 days. Or, you know, water, bone broth, and all that. But I didn't want to do it before Thanksgiving. Thing is, I'm not a day away from Thanksgiving. I'm not 2 days away from Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving right now, and I mean, hey, I'm prepared for it. I'm down to, like, you know, be thankful for giving, but I just didn't know it was today. So I'm really, like, taken aback from that. Also, when it comes to this game's side content, there are huge chunks of it that are very grindy and repetitive. Well, grindy's not the right word, but, like, repetitive and samey and kind of boring. The Coliseum is not one of them. This Coliseum is dope. In fact, this Coliseum may be one of the dopest in the entire series. Also, this Kaito side quest rocks. I love the dynamic of, like, Joryu and Kaito just bouncing off of each other. Like, it's really funny. Like, these are both, like, very guerrilla men, but also, like, pretty smart in their own ways. So, seeing them bounce off each other was super dope. And also, we got to, like, fight against Kaito and also fight with him. So, I really like that. So, for this first fight, I have no equipment, or at least no substantive equipment. You know, like, no equipment that makes my attack insane. However, we're going to fight Kaito again later on, so... And later on, he has a massive amount of health, like an amount of health which I was just not ready to fight against at this point in the game. I wanted to fight against those, like, big health enemies later. I kind of slightly regret how I handled the Kaito fight, the second Kaito fight, because here you don't even know Kaito's name, so he's just called the Mysterious Man. However, in my time code, I call him the Gorilla Man because, like, I think this game uses the term Mysterious Man for too many men. Like, if you're gonna call a boss fight Mysterious Man, it has to apply to one guy, not a bunch of guys, you feel me? Like, I'm trying to keep my time codes, like, you know, varied and all that. So yeah, now he has an insane amount of health. I actually don't know exactly how much health it is. Let me see if I can guess. So, I believe that he has 6 health bars. At this point in the game, I was like, what the hell? However, if you equip gear and just go to town on him, you deal insane damage. So, this game is kind of like Kiwami 2 in the sense that if you have no damage upgrades, you deal very little damage. If you have damage upgrades, you deal too much damage. Like, this game, there is no middle ground. You're either dealing not that much damage or a ridiculous butt truck of damage. And it's just... the game never really finds a middle ground. So, you know, heat action's super powerful. Juggles, once again, because the juggles, like, never, like, decrease in damage, you can just... I love the way Kaito falls here. Check this out. This game has so many bullshit encounters. It is insane. Like, if you thought the gun guy was bad before, he's worse here. However, the one saving grace is that I have equipment that gives me insane damage, so I'm just going to cheese the hell out of this fight. And then you have guys throwing smoke grenades, like, holy shit, it's terrible. It's an actual awful encounter. Also, I love how you can customize your clothes in this game, and it actually shows up in cutscenes and in the boss fight. So I can be like a Seiryu Clown Man Kiwami shirt, you know? I think that's dope as hell. So instead of talking about the strategy for this fight, I'm going to talk about something else, which technically is still related to the strategy for this fight. Basically, in this game, I believe that there is no heat action buffer. Basically, in every single other Yakuza game up to this point, like, every single one of them, once you do a heat action, you can not immediately do another heat action. Basically, like, in the entire Yakuza franchise, like, once you do, like, a heat action, you have to wait, like, 4 to 5 seconds before you're allowed to do another one. I believe this is the first game in the franchise where once you do a heat action, you can immediately do another heat action, give or take. Like, it's a little buggy sometimes just because heat actions are so contextual, but for the most part, once you do a heat action, you can immediately do another heat action. And you could probably, I think you saw that, you saw me doing that in this fight. Because in this fight, like, you know, I go into an enemy, I do a little, like, Yakuza 6 dodge, like, heat action, and then I immediately do it after the enemy, like, tries to hit me. However, in this game, I guess they were trying to save costs because in Yakuza 6, if you dodge... And did you see that? Like, I got hit by something, but I didn't take damage from it. It's very weird, very strange. But yeah, no, I don't know. I guess they were trying to cut costs by doing this, but basically, the dodge heat action from Yakuza 6, if you dodged back, it was a different animation. If you dodged to the side, it was a different animation. If you dodged forward, it was a different animation. However, here, no matter where you dodge, it's always the forward animation. So, like, I don't even know why they removed, like, those animations. Like, was it really so bad to include those, like, other, like, animations for the heat action if you dodge to, like, another direction? Is it, like, a coding thing just because in 6 months y'all didn't want to deal with that? Like, this game's production cycle has to be studied or something, because, like, 6 months for this is insane. Because there's, like, a lot of choices which are also insane. Like, there's, like, a hostess club in this game. However, the big change is that instead of it being, like, in-game models, like, you know, scanned by real people. Wait, I don't know how to say this. Pretty much, like, for the hostesses in previous games, sometimes it will be, like, a real actress who just gets, like, modeled into the game. You know, they get, like, a game model. While here, all the hostess content is just first-person POV videos of you talking to real women. Kind of like it's fucking Night Trap on the Sega CD. But it gets even more ridiculous. Basically, in order to do this, they shot all the video in 4K. Which means that the entire hostess thing takes up 24 gigabytes of this game's entire fucking, like, size file. It's insane. Let's stop talking about that. Let's talk about this fight. This theme is awesome. So yeah, this is around the time I figured out that dodging and then pressing triangle is one of the most useful things in the game, because I keep doing it. Just boom, miss, hit, juggle. Very nice. And here we're just going to transition to the dynamic intro, which I want you all to, like, watch. Check this out. Oh yeah, that's not an intro, that's just like a QTE sequence, which, by the way, from what I remember, there's only 3 of them in the entire game. So yeah, once you're done with that, he's going to try to do a flashbang, and once he does the flashbang, then he does, like, his mortal attack. You can block the flashbang, which means he'll immediately do his mortal attack, but if you're hit by the flashbang, it doesn't deal any damage, but what it does do is, like, kind of leave you stunned for a bit, and the boss fight just kind of taunts you until you're, like, able to dodge. Then he does, like, an attack to, like, pretty much destroy you. For this fight, I do think I had some equipment. I think I had the equipment for, like, you know, getting more heat. I also had the equipment to, like, block blades, but I never did throughout this fight. This is actually surprisingly one of the easier fights in the game, because everyone was, like, hyping this up as being, like, super hard, but then I just, like, I beat him up. I mean, honestly, I could have done this without gear, but at this point, I kind of just did it, and I'm moving on. But yeah, now, since this game was made in 6 months, this is a bullshit fight, by the way. He fucking summons drones. It's a pain in the ass. I hate it. But yeah, no, so self-explanatory. No, this is not self-explanatory. You need to know a few things about this fight. One, whenever he summons drones, the best strategy is to run away from them, because if you just kind of stay there and try to dodge them, you'll just put yourself in an awkward situation, because once you run out of dodges, the drones will just hone in on you. So pretty much what we want to do is just straight up run away from the drones. Doing heat actions does not make the drones go away. Like once if he summons the drones and you do a heat action, then the drones are still going to be there and they're waiting to pounce on you. There's like a little pause before they pounce, but once they start to pounce on you, you have to run. But what's easy about the drones is that they won't chase you for long. Just kind of run away for a little bit, and then they just kind of go away after a certain point. You know, like, look at that, boom, they stopped. Like, after I ran away for a little while, they just kind of stopped. So you don't have to run away for too long. It's not like, I guess, the Amon in Yakuza 6 where they just kind of stay there forever. However, unlike Yakuza 6, these drones actually damage you, except I think new information has been found out that the drones in Yakuza 6 actually do damage you. It's just only very, very, very little. Like, I think someone like hacked the files of the game and saw that like your health points went down when the drones hit you in Yakuza 6, just not by any substantial amount or any amount that matters. But here they actually do damage you an amount that matters, so you do have to fully avoid them no matter what. But yeah, no, since this game was made in 6 months, a lot of the dynamic stuff does feel a little clunky in areas. Like, some of the animations like could be a little weird and janky. For example, the dynamic intro against, I do not know how to say his name, Tsuruno. Pretty much, like, there's this one part where like he dodges an attack from Tsuruno, and he does like a combat roll that's so fast. It's like inhumanly fast. It looks like a gameplay animation because they kind of animated it like that. Just it's like the Kaito files also kind of had a similar amount of jank, where like some of the animations and the timings, or just the choreography of the dynamic intros, dynamic QTEs, dynamic action interruptions, just have a little bit of an awkwardness to them. Like some of the animations are like a little stilted. Some of the punches are just kind of like janky, or some of the spacing. Like sometimes a character will jump and then like in the next cut you don't see them like fall down. They're just on the ground already. Just kind of like a little bit of weirdness. Like they're still really cool. Like these studios still knows how to like do some really smooth looking like dynamic intros. They're just a little janky in areas if you're really paying attention. Kind of like PS2-y, it has a charm. So yeah, if nothing important is going to happen in the next fight, I'd like to talk about something, and that something is another new thing. Oh, this fight is also kind of a bullshit one. I'm going to have a lot of attack, though this fight does end in a funny way. It's just like the fucking gun enemies, man, are insane in this fight. Do I use Serpent in this fight? Because there comes a point where I kind of use Serpent for every single, like, crowd control fight. Oh yeah, so drones. So you have these gadgets. You kind of have, like, the wire, which is awesome. Then you have these drones, which are also cool. And they can have different effects if you're in extreme heat mode. Well, between some of them. I don't think the wire changes if you're in extreme heat mode or not, but the drones definitely do. Normally, you would summon them one by one, and I've done that before. However, if you're in heat mode, extreme heat mode, you can summon all of them all at once if you want to deal some real carnage, though without the right equipment, you're not really going to deal that much damage, but it is really fun to do. It wastes so much heat for the use that it has. And another thing that kind of sucks is that once you like style switch to the Yakuza combos, the drones all go away. So you could do a thing where you summon all the drones and then switch to Yakuza, and then summoning all the drones would have been for nothing. I wish the drones kind of stayed while you were in the Yakuza style. It would have made for some really cool combos or juggles and stuff. Look, we're just going to assault him in the Wild Jackson. Take a look at this. This is the grand reveal of me abusing Serpent to like destroy crowds. Like, I think I'm gonna do it right. Ooh, look at that. It's insane crowd control. And I'm actually like, I don't know why I didn't use it earlier. Maybe I just didn't have the thing unlocked. I didn't know how to like incorporate it, but it's insane. Really, the only thing you have to watch out for when using the Serpent is just gun enemies. Now, boss fights can sometimes interrupt you if you approach them the wrong way, but like guns are the biggest issue. But yeah, something I wanted to mention is that in the Yakuza style, when you do like a double dodge, you know, the one where you start rolling, like the Komaki roller, if that's what, I don't think it's not called that, but you get what I mean. When you do like a second dodge, you like roll away instead of just doing like a quick step away. When you do this in this game, you can pretty much like do a quick step attack after rolling, and that's like not true in any other game in this franchise. Like pretty much like, you know, like in Yakuza 5, once you're rolling, you can't really attack after that immediately. You can't do a quick step attack. In this game, you can, which means that there's some strategies which just were not available before, which now just work. Another fantastic thing is that the heat action where you're in extreme heat mode and dodge into an enemy, it also activates when you're rolling into them. It doesn't have to be like a short quick step, you can roll into them. Mind you, the game which introduced these heat actions kind of got rid of the rolling dodge. I mean, in order to like roll while dodging, you had to like run and not be locked on. So you were never in a position where you had to roll, but now you're rolling, and when you roll into an enemy, you can do a heat action. Oh wait, I'm wrong. When you roll into an enemy and do a heat action, Yakuza 3 and 4 had that, and it's like one of the best heat actions in the game. Well, it's returned, except now it's not a unique heat action. It's the same one as the one in Yakuza 6, which maybe is kind of sad, but it has the same benefits. You know, like, you're invulnerable when like rolling into enemies most of the time, so it's just super, super useful. I'm going to abuse the hell out of it in a future fight. I don't think I abuse it in this one. And given that this game has no heat action buffer, you can just spam the dodge button while in Yakuza style, just kind of vaguely aim against certain enemies, and then just instantly do a heat action. There's only like one exception to this, and it involves the crowd control heat action you get with Agent like at the end of the game. Pretty much when you like fully upgrade all the gadgets, you get like one heat action that like takes out 3 enemies, and it's one where like Kiryu does like this sick animation where he uses every single gadget at his disposal. Once you do that heat action, you actually have to wait like 3 to 4 to 5 seconds before doing another heat action. It's like one of the only examples in the game where that's the case. Alright, so here, one way to really build up heat is that, once again, it involves Serpent. And, oh my goodness, nephew kind of tweaking right now. I don't think he's seen enough of the world, but this is not a stream, so I'm not going to be taking him to see the world during this little recording. But yeah, no, pretty much like since taunting only gives you a little bit of heat, since hitting enemies doesn't give you that much heat, the best way to build up heat is by breaking objects with Serpent. I mean, hitting enemies with Serpent also kind of builds heat, but not that much. The most comes from breaking objects. So if you're in an arena and there is a bunch of objects to break, it is your lucky day. Though, you know, if you want to knock down these enemies like bowling pins, like it's the Ice Age 2 minigame, Ice Age 2 The Meltdown for the Nintendo Wii, I have no damage to that game, watch that video some point, someday, yeah. Then you can just knock them down and still get a bunch of heat, so... You know, just strategies to keep in mind if you want to play this game, beat this game, be good at the game, no damage to the game. Also, I gotta say, this arena is dope as hell. Like, just this area in general is dope as hell. I forgot what it was called. It was like the ship, the graveyard, the corpse. I mean, I honestly forgot what it's called, but it's a beautiful looking area. Yes, it's very tiny. There's not much to do here aside from the activities they want you to do. It's basically just like a hub for like the new activities. But you know what? It looks sick. Like, it looks so sick. So for like a short game, I'm kind of happy this little area is here. Like, it's just got so much personality, so much flash, so many clowns. Honestly, that clown kind of reminds me of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, because there was a similar looking clown in that. Not to say that Marvel vs. Capcom 2 like invented clowns or anything, but I feel like these clowns have some similarities. Just big ass clown head, very scary. I don't want it to crush me. But something interesting about this game is that you never really hang out in Kamurocho. So it might be a new thing for the series that a lot of the major releases, because I also get the impression that we're not going to be chilling in Kamurocho, Kamurocho in Yakuza 8. So like, it's kind of like we're abandoning like the mainstay, like, you know, hub area of the series. Now then again, in Yakuza 7, Kamurocho was also kind of an afterthought. There was like nothing to do there. I mean, yeah, you kind of hung out there every now and then. But then again, in Yakuza 7, every single area except for like the main one was kind of an afterthought. I mean, Sotenbori only really had like one big activity, you know, the whole arena, and then there was nothing else to do there aside from just kind of vibe. But yeah, no, in this game, you only really hang out in Sotenbori and then like a segmented section of the Yakuza 7 map. So, you know, it's kind of a new things for this series moving forward. And also, Yakuza 8 looks insane. I am so excited to play that game, and I really hope it's possible to no damage it, and it is really sad that New Game Plus is basically locked behind money. I hate that a lot. But yeah, now since I'm playing this encounter cheap, because it is kind of like a cheap, big encounter, though honestly with the strategies, with Serpent and all that, maybe you don't really need gear to like destroy these fights. As for specific gear, I don't really know which specific gear I use a lot of the time for these fights, but I did stream this entire game, and during the stream, I streamed most of the times I no damage the fights, because with my setup, I could stream and also record footage at the same time, because I'm playing this on the PS5. I love that my teammates just kind of pulled up and just destroyed that guy for me. I like that a lot. But yeah, no, so if you want to see what equipment I use, just watch my streams and you could probably do some research and pretty much figure it out. So it is documented somewhere. It's not like I'm trying to hide it. I don't feel like going for that documentation myself. And here is a side quest boss fight that you're forced to fight. Yes, he can summon drones too, so I'm using Serpent to run away from them and also build up heat. You know what's crazy about this guy is that he is copying like Hirose from Yakuza 6, but in this game, Hirose's moveset is like really easy, because like in Yakuza 6, fighting Hirose was like super tough. You know, he just had like a lot of weird movements and he could counter a lot of stuff you do. But in this game, I swear, they like removed the little counter he does whenever you try to like attack him from the front, where he just like kicks you away. Like that counter didn't deal damage or anything, but you know, it was like, it made him like difficult to fight. But here, this guy, you can just annihilate him. And just, oh my goodness, nephew is tweaking because his father is not here. But like, he's just chilling. He already ate. He already like let go of his insides. If anyone feels inclined to, please comment down which boss fights are copying movesets. Like, not all of them do, but a good majority of these boss fights do copy movesets. I just feel a little tired of keeping track of all of them. Yeah, even my nephew doesn't like when this series reuses movesets for like major boss fights, but with a game that was made in 6 months, I guess you can kind of cut him some slack. But, I don't know, I mean, subconsciously, like, if the boss fight's reusing movesets, I'll probably find it lamer, but, you know. Like Nishitani, you know, that's a new move. That's a brand new moveset, and honestly, I really like it a lot. And also, like, his suit is dope. His theme is awesome. Like, the first Nishitani didn't have an original theme, which is kind of crazy to me in retrospect. He has, like, the basic generic boss fight theme. The only time he gets his, like, own original song is, like, in the climax battles, where, like, they play the Majima tutorial music from Yakuza 0, and that is probably one of the best tutorials in the entire franchise. Just, like, him styling on a guy with that badass music. And like that music only being used for like that tutorial section is like insane, but it's an incredible introduction. Also, it should be worth noting that yes, I am using the equipment that makes your attack like ridiculously high in this encounter, because I mean, just look at this encounter. It's also very similar to a moment in Yakuza 2 where like someone calls you out to like the golf place to like meet someone, and that someone is an assassin. You're getting assassinated at the golf place, so that's why I called it the golf assassination, because well, too many of these fights are called like the Kijin Clan, like, you know, encounter, so I decided to kind of add some variety because this is a unique encounter, golf assassination. And I am so glad I was able to add that. I was able to like add in that like blocking heat action because it looks so cool. Agent just has all these really precise, really dope like heat actions, and just, you know, when I'm just kind of dealing with a crowd, I kind of like to do that. So yeah, I guess the thing that really annoys me about that slow-mo dodge is that it's a neat idea and concept, but I'm just not sure if they like tested it enough. Because just like it's so easy to get hit when you're dodging away from there. Also, whenever you're like dodging away in extreme heat mode, because you have like these built-in counters, you kind of just like gravitate towards the enemy, so it can get kind of annoying if you're just trying to get away from the enemies. And a nephew here, I'm just chilling with him, and he just does not want to be on the seat with me. He does not want to be on the edge of my seat here recording commentary for Like a Dragon, Gaiden, the man who erased his name. Even though I'm not really going to include that in the title, it is important. Oh yeah, speaking of titles, subtitles. I made the subtitles yellow. Isn't that pretty? It looks like an old anime rip. You know when people did like fan translations? It kind of brings me back to those times. So I decided to do that for Like a Dragon, Gaiden. I guess my nephew here, you know, he's a little bit new. He's a little bit of a baby. He's only like 7 months old. So he doesn't really fuck with that old anime lore like that. But I'm a big fan of it. I like it a lot. I kind of associate it a lot with like Neon Genesis Evangelion. Just like I see a lot of screenshots with like that color of subtitles with that show. Because for the longest time, there wasn't really a good release of Neon Genesis Evangelion with subtitles like that. Oh yeah, it should be mentioned, I'm actually not using the damage increasing gear for this fight in particular. In fact, I think the only item I'm using is like the heat gain amulet. Yep, like the heat gain, no, not the heat gain amulet per se, but the amulet that lets you do more heat actions. I think that's the only thing I'm doing here. And then the rest of this is no attack upgrades. I mean, mind you, I haven't had attack upgrades for the entire video except when I was fighting like the welfare thieves.
I've just been using equipment to like increase my damage, because if I get one of the damage upgrades, then I'm forced to have it for the rest of the game. So like there's moments in this game where I don't want any damage upgrades. So if I get a damage upgrade, I'm just forced to have it for the rest of the game. While here with the equipment, I can just kind of change whenever I want to deal Kiwami 2 damage or Yakuza 3 damage, you feel me? Even though I think even at its lowest, you don't deal Kiwami 3, Yakuza 3, what the fuck am I talking about? There is no Kiwami 3. In fact, I don't want a Kiwami 3. And they still have to make like a remake of Enzen anyways. They kind of planned on it, maybe. They kind of said one thing in an interview. So that one thing might lead to another. Enzen Kiwami is something that'll happen like the next 20 years. I'm confident in that. I would actually be surprised if I'm wrong on that. So yeah, no, I just wanted to see if I can handle one of these group encounters without like insane attack and just using my cheap strategy of like spamming the dodge roll heat action and serpenting around the room and just seeing how that goes. So not the most stylish fight, but hey, I mean, it is possible. It just kind of drags things out a little bit, just spamming that over and over and over. I mean, I do have heat, which is good. So yeah, no, that's just kind of what's happening right now. I don't really have too much more to say about this game, except I might as well talk about the story briefly, since we are near the end of this video. I do like it, though the story does kind of end up being a bit of a nothing burger, in the sense that like the events don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, aside from like a few things. You know, like, but what I do like about the story is it does have a decent cast of characters, and one thing which I really like is the tone. This is a darker story. Honestly, like, I don't know, I think Yakuza sometimes has a habit of having goody two-shoe characters. I mean, the Yakuza are some of the most fucked up. I mean, I get mafias in general are just really fucked up and evil and deranged and all that, you know, not really heroic people. Yakuza kind of likes to portray their people in like a heroic light, and they still kind of do it in this game. But there's also shades of like really fucked up shit. Like, a lot of your allies just are fucked up, dude. Like, you know, Kiryu's forced to be an agent for like this shady ass, like fucking helping out the Japanese government, like organization. You know, they fucking kidnap people, torture them for 3 days. Like, you know, like your friend, your handler, who's like, you know, sympathetic to your cause, still like, you know, threatens to like fuck up the kids that you raise at an orphanage, right? Yeah, he does it against his will. He feels sad about it, but he still does it, right? Like, he was still kind of willing to go through with it if, you know, Kiryu didn't like, you know, sit down and listen. So like, even your friends in this game are fucked up individuals. Like Tsuruno fucking tortures the shit out of your handler. He tries to beat the shit out of you. Like, he tries to brand you like a cow. This Nishitani's a rapist. He's not your friend, but he is a rapist. And rape, let's say it's bad. 9/11, also bad. And here we're about to fucking destroy the shit out of him. About to do a little juggle, and I'm gonna send all the fucking drones after him. Oh man. So I pretty much trap him in a corner. I send all the drones after him. Then I do like the retaliation where like I do like a sick little combo, kind of like I dodge, light attack, and then all the drones attack him while I do that light attack. And then the drones are gonna lead us to this little dynamic thing. Check this out. It's actually kind of insane that Nishitani's fights here never got a dynamic intro. Though I am very glad that the flashbangs don't damage you, because if they did, then this attempt would be over and I would be sad. However, that flashbang also kind of extends the length of this video, because if he didn't throw that flashbang, this video would be like under like a minute. While here, this no damage is under 2 minutes, which is insane. Like, every no damage I've seen of this guy, they take like 4 minutes because they try to do something like without extreme heat, or like they try to like block his knife attacks using equipment. I just don't do any of that. I'm not sure if I'm even using any equipment in this fight. Maybe I'm using the heat amulet thing, but I'm just destroying this guy. And see, he has a get-up attack, and you can dodge the get-up attack, you know, kind of do the heavy counter, and just continue. Oh, yeah, music sync. Now we gotta let Like a Dragon Gaiden take us back to the past to remember the previous boss fights from this series at the low price of buying the DLC. Mind you, I pre-ordered this game, and when you pre-order the game, you get access to the DLC, but yeah, no, you can't fight, from what I know, you can't fight Daigo without the DLC. But the strategy for this fight, I have no gear, by the way, for this. I actually uploaded this fight previously. It's the same fight. So I have no gear, so I run up to him, and every time I run up to him, he pretty much like blocks, so I do the blocking heat action. I go into extreme heat mode just so I can do like an instant juggle after that. And after I'm done like beating him up with Dragon, I do the kick heat action, kind of go from there. I really like the detail of like using his Yakuza 4 face theme. I love that theme. It's a great theme. I mean, there could have been some other themes for Daigo, but this is like the most quintessential Daigo theme, right? I mean, there's like his theme in Yakuza 5. There's like the Japanese license song. You can't use that. They're not gonna pay for that. And then there's the unique rendition they did for the English version of Yakuza 5. That song is awesome, but you know, not really the Daigo song. Honestly, I associate that song more with Shinada more than anything. I mean, isn't it just like a re-rendition of like one of Shinada's battle themes, but like in a more epic sense? Like this is the Daigo theme, and we're like, you know, we're Joryu, we're fighting Daigo. This DLC completely breaks the canon of the story because you don't meet up with Daigo, Majima, and Saejima until like the very end of the game. But with this DLC, you can just find these dudes chilling in the Fighters Lounge, and you can also just fight them in the Coliseum like this. Maybe they're just fake versions of them, you know, kind of like the fake versions we fought of like Watase and like Kiryu and all that, and Ryuji. But then again, you know, we're using their themes for this. I guess it's just like an event the Coliseum setup. That's how they explain it. Rubber disguise. And here I'm just setting him up with the drones. And something really funny happens because I set him up with the drones. I want to do the falling heat action, but since the drones are there, I think it like extends this animation for like a little too long. But then I'm back on the ground and then boom, bam, pow, destroy him. Oh yeah, also I should mention, this is like the first boss fight in the game which I actually go like red health for. Because this game, oh, I should also mention the difficulties. The name of the difficulties are unlike anything else in the series. Like most of the series has like normal, hard, X hard, you know? But this is like the first game where the difficulties are something like pretty much like friendly, standard, and then professional. So yeah, no, just like Resident Evil 4 Remake, the hardest difficulty of this game is professional, and it's definitely one of the hardest modes in any of the Yakuza games, aside from like Yakuza 3 because of the health. Just like, it's really hard on professional, like especially on new game. Well, hard for Yakuza standards. So yeah, that is a first for the series. And playing on professional, where the hell was I going with this? Hold up. Oh, right, the reason I went with like low health for this fight is because with the Coliseum fights, you can just restart them from the beginning and just always have low health. While with the story fights, every time you restart a story fight, it just heals up all your health and heat. And with these levels, it's hard to set up like a red health encounter. While with the Coliseum fights, it's pretty easy, so I can take advantage of the unique heat actions which red health gives me, and also the advantage of just always getting your heat filled up. Saejima does not block when you run up to him, so instead I'm going to do this blocking heat action, and Saejima is a tricky pony. Like, holy moly, he's so tough. In the sense of like his attack, he's always dodging you, his attacks can come out pretty soon, he has like weird super armor, but I'm dealing with it. Also, I'm doing a unique thing with Saejima where I've equipped, like, I forgot what it's called. I think it's like the Heat Talisman or like the Bloody Heat Talisman or like the Bloody Talisman, which basically, if you're at low health, it heals your health. So, to take advantage of that, I start the fight with low health. I do like the low health heat action, you know, kind of like the Dragon God. And then when my health like heals up to like normal levels, I get to do another heat action just to like kind of deal more damage and get that S rank. So yeah, I am using gear for this Saejima fight, but not exactly the gear that gives you that much attack, but one that gives you like a decent amount of attack. Oh yeah, by the way, you probably already noticed this, but heat actions like pause the timer in the Coliseum. So in order to get an S rank, it's all about timing. Nothing else matters. It's just about timing. Just get the fight in under 2 minutes, and that is an S rank fight. I'm gonna S rank Daigo. I'm gonna S rank Saejima. I'm not gonna S rank Majima. You'll see why in a bit, because the Majima fight is right after the Saejima fight. And for Saejima, they've included his Yakuza 4 like battle theme, which I like because it's much better than like his Yakuza 5 battle theme. His Yakuza 5 battle theme just kind of sounds like a ringtone in the beginning. Like, it's not bad, it's just that his Yakuza 4 one's way more iconic and just way more guttural and beastly. And this is a beastly dude, so you know, let's go with it. Anyways, here is the first time I used Serpent against a boss fight 1v1, but honestly I should have been using it a lot sooner because it has a lot of useful applications. But I'm just kind of doing it to be all silly. And here I'm going to try to land a juggle, and it doesn't work. I do break his guard. I try to grab him. Oh, no, I just do a quick step attack. Because, like, every time I try to grab an enemy, they, like, break away. However, fun fact, if you grab an enemy with Agent, even if they push you away, they don't damage you. But if you grab them with a Yakuza style, if they push you away, they throw you to the ground and damage you. So that's really weird. But the Agent style also has a grab where if you're not trying to do a heavy attack or a heat action, you just do the light attack, you can just do it infinitely. It doesn't deal much damage, but you can do it infinitely. And there was another thing I wanted to mention, I forgot what it is, but we're about to fight Majima. I guess one thing I do want to mention is that I think Akame is dope, dude. Like, I love that character. Like, she fucking screams for everything. She is an incredibly loud individual. Like, you'll just be chilling, like, in her little crib or whatever, and she'll be like, yeah! No, not with, like, that I sound like the fucking nostalgia critic. She does not sound like that. Like, you gotta be a really likable character for me not to hate you for giving me so much, like, tedious side content to do. She's, like, at the center of all of it. Like, the upgrade system, she's also at the center of it. Right? And also, she's like a good person in the game. Well, good, but she also has shades of gray, which I do really like in this game. Like, every character has shades of gray. Even Akame, like, you know, she's working with the Omi, she's working with shady individuals, but she does, like, genuinely want to help out the homeless, though she's also using them as, like, part of her network and all that, you know? She wears red because red is, like, pink and pink is girly, while Nishitani wears blue because blue is for boys. You know, girls go to Jupiter to get more stupider, boys go to Venus to cut off penis, you know? Unrelated, but Nishitani is also bisexual. However, his name is not Vamp, which is weird, but he's not a vampire, so he's not called Vamp. So for Majima, I'm just going straight cheap. You know, I am not doing anything stylish here. I'm just trying to kill him as fast as possible. I think I'm doing this without gear, but like, it's still not stylish. I'm just trying to kill him. And sadly, I do not end up like killing him in an S-ranked fashion, but I do end up dealing a ton of damage just because like he has so many weird attacks, so many like stops and starts and all that. Like, I was just kind of sick of the game at this point. I just wanted to get it done. So, you know, Daigo Saejima get to have deliberately placed heat actions. Majima gets the one heat action. This is the only time I do a heat action against this guy. So that's it. Besides that, that's all it is. Also, this fight does use his Yakuza 4 boss fight theme, which is pretty iconic. It's a dope theme. Also, for his summon in Yakuza 7, they also use this theme, so, you know, it's kind of keeping consistent with that. But yeah, if you want this fight to be an S rank, definitely use heat actions, because once again, heat actions stop the timer, and I did not use heat actions against Majima here, so the fight ended up being a lot longer, but also the way I approach him after this point, it does take a bit of time. So, see, this is something you can do with, like, you know, being able to do quick step attacks when you dodge into the enemy, and yes, my nephew here is not the biggest fan of Like a Dragon Gaiden. He'd rather be watching Skippity Toilet. Yes, this is slander towards my nephew because he's a baby. But yeah, no, so like now, pretty much what I can do with Majima is that I can like do 2 dodges into him, and most of the time his attacks will just kind of like put me behind him. When I'm like behind Majima, what I can do is a quick step attack, do a couple light attacks, and then dodge away. Usually 3 light attacks. This works with a lot of boss fights. In fact, this works with Nishitani. So against knife wielders, this is a great strategy with the Yakuza style. Maybe not the most stylish, but it is kind of stylish how I'm dodging his attacks, right? And I kind of came up with this on the fly, but it is something which I kind of knew for a while. It's just like, I never tried to implement it in any boss fight or whatnot, but I decided to implement it here. I was kind of playing around, and, you know, I did end up no damaging him, so that is very good. However, spoiler alert, I got a C rank in this fight, so that is a big shame. But besides that, there's not much more to say about this Majima fight. I'm just kind of building up heat, and boom, I build up heat for one final juggle. And it is a bit of a pathetic juggle just because it's the exact same type of juggle as every single other like juggle I've done and like the previous boss fights. But it does end the fight, and I think that's pretty neat. Just boom, Majima sat down. Let's go. And here is the finale of the game, the final chapter, the final battles, and this is like the most evil fight in the game. You're fighting Nishitani here, except he has a longer knife now, a sword, which is insane. And then you have like the final boss of the game, you know, just chilling right next to you. I mean, hey, if you didn't know that, well, now you know. He's the final boss of the game, the other guy. Like Shishido, if that's how you say his name. So the strategy here is I have the best attack equipment ever, and also the heat amulet. I'm just going to cheese the hell out of this fight, like no skill involved, because look at what we're dealing with here. So, and this is really lucky. I got flashbang, but then I blocked, and I blocked in such a way where like I didn't get hit by the enemy. So basically I start the fight off, I do a heat action on Nishitani in order to like progress the fight, then I just kind of serpent the enemies around. I wait for Nishitani to do like a mortal attack. I don't counter it because when countering it, I am in danger of being hit by a gun guy. There's gun people in the field, so like, you know, you gotta either find them or just like dodge whenever a gun's about to go off. And then you'll know that you're gonna reach this next phase, which is kind of like a Lego game, because in the Lego games you kind of have like a little circle you have to enter in order to like use a grappling hook to like get to higher elevation. Yeah, this is basically a Lego game, and I can bring this little big ass thing to like hit him with for a heat action. Basically, once he throws the flashbang, just block the flashbang, avoid damage, and you're gonna go to the next phase. So that's pretty much what triggers it. Like get half of his health down, run around, maybe defeat a couple enemies, and then wait for the flashbang. That triggers the second phase. In the second phase, object heat action, and then I'm going to do this heat action. And remember what I was saying earlier? Once you do this heat action, there's like 4 or 5 seconds where you can't do another heat action. So you can't just spam the dragon heat action, even though that is what I wanted to do. And then boom, we have a gun enemy here. We got to get rid of him, though. Technically, you don't have to get rid of the normal enemies in this encounter. You only have to take down Nishitani to get to the third phase. Also, another thing is that this entire fight setup is kind of fake, because you don't actually have to defeat that entire crowd from part 1. Once you progress to the second phase and then progress to the third phase, the only enemies left in the third phase is not all the enemies in phase 1. All the enemies in phase 1 are gone by the time you get to the third phase. It's just like the mini boss fights you fought before in like the Tsuruno clan, no, in like the Watase clan, right? Watase family, all that stuff. So all the mini bosses are here, except they don't have boss fight health bars. They just have normal enemy health bars, so they're not all that hard. But there is one guy with a gun, and the final boss fight of the game is just kind of chilling down there in the third phase. So you really have to watch out, because that guy is aggressive, though. In these beginning sections, he won't target you, but you really want to get rid of the gun guy first. Wiring enemies disarms their weaponry. That includes gun guys, so just kind of get in there quick, spam some dragon, do what you got to do. Actually, just kill him. Just run up to him and kill him. This is the worst enemy of the entire group. Maybe steal his gun, do a heat action. Boom, did a heat action, though maybe it might have been more efficient just to shoot the gun without the heat action. And then boom, just... There's not much to say. This fight's a complete pain in the ass. Honestly, you should maybe invest in some like bullet and blade blocking gear, but I actually did not do this for this fight. Actually, I think I might have blade blocking gear, but I never used it. I just like overpowered him with like my sheer attack and heat actions. And now we're just kind of in hell, and we have to finish it. Also, another thing about this fight is this is the last fight where you're allowed to wear your silly costume, because every single other fight after this one forces you to wear a specific suit and also specifically be shirtless. So it's a lot like the Spider-Man games on PS4. Once you reach the final boss, you have to wear like the mandated suit that the game wants you to wear for the final boss, even if you don't like it. So... Yakuza's kind of doing the same thing, though for a series that never had customization in, like, its main story events. I mean, that's not really the biggest issue. Maybe Kuruhyo had customization, though I'm not sure if that customization really matters in the boss fights, because once you reach the boss fights, you're already going shirtless, because every single, like, boss fight in Kuruhyo, aside from, like, a few exceptions, is, like, in the Colosseums, and in the Colosseums, you have to wear the Colosseum fit. So, if you don't know about the Kuruhyo games, I have no damage them, though my no damages are pretty rough. But, I did no damage them with commentary. Really like those Kuruhyo games. I hope they get translated one day. They're awesome. And here I'm just kind of getting him to, like, his second health bar with the drones, just letting my partners do all the work, though. I think there kind of comes a point... Oh, this doesn't apply to this fight. It applies to a later fight. Oh, yeah, something really dangerous about the fight. That yellow barrel. If you, like, serpent into that yellow barrel, it will blow up and you will take damage. I have failed so many attempts because of that specific thing, because of that specific barrel. Another reason why I failed a couple attempts is this guy's flying knee attack. Like, in every single fight where you fight this guy, the flying knee attack is one of the worst, like, moves in the entire game. It haunts me in every single encounter. It haunts me in the very first encounter you have with him. It haunts me in the encounter where you get the Yakuza style. It haunted me here, and it haunted me while I was trying to, like, no damage the final boss fight. Like, holy shit. And now this fight, I decided to include it because it's so cool. It's like the entire climax of, like, Yakuza 7. But then you get to play Kiryu's side of it, except I don't think they imagined that you just summoned a bunch of drones in the beginning. So yeah, summon drones, block, dodge away, like, just put the drones out into the field. I have the same gear to, like, increase attack as the previous fight, and then wire some enemies. Try to wire the enemies that have guns, because there's like 3 of them in this field. Also watch out, because there's a possibility that, like, an enemy which didn't have a gun can pick up a gun and become a gun enemy. Serpenting over the gun sometimes destroys them, or just enemies might just accidentally kick their own gun and, like, destroy it on the process of trying to fight other people, and then boom, yeah, just clear house. Drones, wire, serpent, using all of the gadgets possible. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is the only fight in the game where I actually use all 4 of my gadgets, because I never use the cigarette. The cigarette just seems like too situational to like ever be useful. There's like some cool things you can do with it just for like a finishing in style, but you know, like if you activate extreme heat mode with a cigarette, you do like this long taunt, like this 5 to 8 second taunt where you throw the cigarette, you know, kind of turn your back, throw it, big explosion, but it takes so long that it's just really bad to use it against boss fights unless you set it up in a really specific way. Pious Lee actually set it up in a really specific way. Yeah, once there's like only like 2 or 3 enemies, I'm just gonna taunt a lot in order to get a lot of heat for the next section, because the next section I'm going to need to do a ton of heat actions, you know, just clear house, you know, just same old as same. I forgot the phrase.
悪いがここを通してやるわけにはいかねえ。どうしてもってんならこの俺が相手になる。
So yeah, the strategy here is I'm just going to do this heat action on the boss fight. I have the best attack gear, so I'm going to attack him. Technically, I don't have the best attack gear, but you know, I have the gear that gives me like a bunch of attack, like over 1,000. So I'm just going to like clear house doing these heat actions, just rolling into enemies. Roll into that guy. Now I failed to do it here, so this is like one of the rare moments where it's just not working, but then after this, boom, it's going to work all the time. So I'm just going to like pretty much waste my entire heat bar doing these actions, just clearing out the entire room, and then after that, I'm going to try to wire, I'm going to try to serpent. This arena is really annoying because there's like a bunch of gun enemies. There's like 4 on one side, like 2 to 3 on the other. Like, you know, it's like they have gun enemies on both sides, on opposite sides of the hallway. So, you know, it's like if you clear out one side of the hallway, there's still the other side, which has a gun enemy. I can hear him. And then boom, I tried to serpent, and I luckily like stopped serpenting right when he's about to shoot me. Then boom, there's another one like on the other side of the field, which I haven't killed yet. It's insane. And I missed the guy who's still alive over there, so just really annoying stuff. And yeah, it's best to like try to wire them, but also, you know, not get hit in the process. Like I'm getting so many close calls. I have to like just go melee on the guy just to make sure the guy stays dead. And there was something else I wanted to mention. I forgot it. I don't know. Yeah, no, I think I just straight up forgot what else I was going to say at this point. I mean, I guess I'll talk about something I haven't mentioned before, but like I think graphically this game looks awesome, though there's a bit of jank with some of the animations. I mean, hey, this animation looks sick as hell, but you know, like the dynamic intro stuff, you know, kind of similar to Kaito Files, but like the rendering and lighting is like out of this world. Compared to like Yakuza 7, it's a much better looker than Yakuza 7 per se. I mean, that's not exactly a high bar. Yakuza 7 just has like these weirdly low-res graphics for like the faces and stuff compared to the rest of the series. Like even compared to like Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2, hey, see, there's the little cigarette. I set him up for a little explosion. Boom, nice sync up there, very nice. But yeah, no, like even I like how Sotenbori looks in this game compared to like say Kiwami 2, because like the orange filter I think is a good look. Wait, check this out actually. So Team Friendship has to end the Omi Alliance, and honestly, this fight was way easier than the previous one. I mean, the previous one has like a phase where you have to protect Watase, and he can die sometimes. He's actually died a lot in my playthroughs. Like, not as hard as any of the God of War 2 hostage missions, or even the God of War 1 hostage missions, but like, you know, you gotta watch out with Watase. Thing is, it's funny how everyone keeps commenting they didn't know he could die, just because like they were surprised to see that he was dying in my playthroughs. But yeah, no, he can die. So, you know, do be sure to protect him. But yeah, here, just kind of the same old, same old. I mean, I'm going to be doing some drones, I'm going to be doing some wires, I'm going to be doing a lot of dragon heat actions. I mean, Yakuza heat action. I call it dragon because it's like red, like the dragon style in Kiwami 1, though the Kiwami 1 dragon style and this Yakuza style are different. And I like how I just automatically picked up the sword. I wasn't planning on doing that. That was a complete accident. Ooh, yeah, that is very, very annoying for juggles, though. Basically, once you're in extreme heat mode in the Yakuza style and you're near furniture, you will automatically pick up furniture unless you hold down the L2 button. So it's the same thing as in Yakuza 6. If you just want to do your normal combos without picking up a weapon, you know, when you're trying to like style on a guy in extreme heat mode, you have to hold down L2 to not pick up furniture. Same thing here, you know, because like there's been so many moments where like I juggled with Agent and then I tried to do something with Yakuza, but Kiryu accidentally like picked up a piece of furniture. Well, Joryu over here. So, and like the thing is, I swear, like trying to juggle enemy with furniture is actually impossible. Like, I don't know if anyone's like done it, but I'm pretty sure it's impossible. Like, once Kiryu picks up the piece of furniture, it's already too late. The enemies like flop down to the ground, which makes this combat a bit of a downgrade from the Kaito files. Honestly, controversial, I think the Kaito files is actually more fun to play. I mean, hey, it is just Lost Judgment, but like, you know, with the brawler and beast styles, but it's just like it flows better. It's like faster. You know, the juggles like are a little bit more stylish per se. I mean, I don't know if I want to say that. The juggles in the Kaito files are still very limited, so like I don't want to toot my horn too hard there. But like, Kaito files overall was like more fun to play, but this is a bit more of a substantive campaign. I mean, there's actually side content. The Kaito files had like no side content. Like everything it had was really bare bones because it was a DLC. $30 might have been a bit much for it, but I also really loved the Kaito files story. Like, I definitely like the story in Kaito files better than this game. This game just, it feels so much like a nothing burger, while with the Kaito files, you know, like I think it fleshed out like, you know, one of the dopest like guerrilla characters. And also it just kind of has like the Kaito files. I mean, just watch my Kaito files no damage if you want more context on like why I like that game's story. But it's like it took like a lot of plot elements from a bunch of the games and honestly just like took the best aspects of them. You know, you kind of have like a character like the love interest is kind of takes aspects of like, you know, Yumi, Kaoru, just like she's great, I love her. And then like just and then like the little kid, it's like a new take on like Haruka. Just damn, Kaito files was so dope. I mean, like, there were issues with it, you know, just kind of like low production values here and there, little janky here, too many reused movesets, not a lot of boss fights. This game has more boss fights, thankfully, but it still has a lot of fluff, a lot of like reused movesets, a lot of like, we made this in 6 months, please help us. I'm gonna end this fight by shooting him in the face. I think that's pretty cool. And I already know that a dynamic intro is coming up with the final boss, so I'll just let that play out. For a game where so much of it is like alright, it's kind of insane how good this final boss fight is. This is like maybe my favorite final boss fight in the series, or maybe like top 3. This fight is insane. Like this is everything I would want out of a Yakuza final boss. It's excellent, and it's just for a game there was so much of it just wasn't excellent. You know, it was kind of like rushed, kind of felt like it was made in 6 months. This just fucking blew me out of the water for sure. And I hope you can understand my strategy here. I pretty much start the fight off. I roll into him, do 2 punches, drop kick, heat action. I am using gear for this fight. Basically, I'm using the heat amulet and the thing which lets you block blades. But what's funny is I'm never going to actually block him in the blade style. I'm just going to dodge around him. I'm honestly just equipped with like the blocking blades thing just to add more attack. I actually did not do this on stream because in my final stream I spent like 9 hours trying to no damage this guy. No, more like 6. 6 hours trying to no damage this guy, and every time I failed, I did push-ups. I think I did over 300 and I did around 340 push-ups trying to no damage this guy, which is crazy. Also, what's crazy is his music. His music is awesome, but also typically in like Yakuza, like say in the final boss of Yakuza 0, the music would sync up to these little like dynamic interludes, but the music isn't meant to be syncing up here. I think I just timed it really well. It's a bit ridiculous because like, you know, however, like in the final phase, there is kind of like a forced transition to like the second song, which like, you know, makes up this fight. But yeah, first phase, you know, kind of deal with it the way I did. I actually made use of like the grab light attack. So pretty much just, fuck, I want to explain my strategies, but I'm so far ahead in this fight that I think I'm losing track of what I did. But yeah, in the first part, you know, kind of poop poop, drop kick, taunt, and then pretty much go into extreme heat mode, do a finishing hold, which you can only do if you're in extreme heat mode, which I think is dumb. And then when he's going far away, use Serpent to catch up to him. Make sure Serpent like stuns him. And when he's stunned, stop using Serpent. Go up, grab him, do a light attack. The light attack sends him far away enough that you can just run up to him and do like the running up, like the run kick, like heat action. Which, by the way, you also, that is one heat action you don't have to be in extreme heat mode to do. And that was so lucky. That Superman punch should have gotten me like kills, should have gotten me like, you know, that should have like ended my run, but it didn't. And here, rolling into him works most of the time. It actually works better when he's in his sword phase. And his hand-to-hand phase is actually harder than the sword phase, because in the sword phase he doesn't have that fucking bullshit like flying knee attack. I hate that attack with my entire being. In every phase of the fight, I'm doing about 2 to 3 heat actions just to kind of like keep the damage nice, keep it going, you know. I'm going to be relying on juggles the whole time, but also just doing heat actions every now and then. For here, we're in a place with a lot of objects, so boom, he gets hit by the lamp. Sometimes if I throw him near a couch, I hit him with a couch, but I already hit him with the lamp. And the other heat action I want to do is not hitting him with an object, so... And also, I enter this phase with a good amount of heat. So, you know, sometimes I enter this phase without any heat, and what I do is I just kind of break the furniture in order to, like, recover. So then, boom, we're going to do this juggle, and in this juggle, I'm going to just kind of beat the fuck out of him. But then I'm going to do a quick step attack into him and do that heat action, the Essence of 88. Would it have been better to save this for the final phase? Maybe, but I had enough heat actions for the final phase anyway. So, yeah, first phase, you know, it's like the drop kick, the running attack, and then for the second phase, it's the kick, and then... I actually didn't do a second heat action in the second phase, because usually what I would do in the second phase is I would do the kick heat action, and then after doing the kick heat action, I would like do the, you know, blocking him with agent heat action, but I actually saved that heat action for the final phase, and I think it works better that way. So yeah, I did my 2 heat actions, which I wanted to do, so now I just need to juggle this guy a lot. I recovered my heat, and we're actually going to go into the next phase right now. This is crazy. This is probably the hardest phase, the third phase. You need to enter this phase with heat because, you know, dealing with those 3 health bars, like hand-to-hand normally, holy shit, that's gonna be tough. Also, you have to watch out with this guy. So you know how you can do a heat action where, you know, you wire them and then you intentionally fall to do that? You can't do this against this guy. This is the only enemy in the game that actually has a counter to that. So if you do the wire thing and he pulls you down to the ground, he does a heat action of his own. And, you know, I failed an attempt at trying to no damage this guy because I tried to pull that shit, and he just fucking did it to me in the final phase of this fight. And given that this is a pretty long fight, you know, it's like 4 phases, pretty much almost as long as Aizawa's fight, or maybe just as long, you know, because it's kind of built in the same style, but instead of being in the Tojo, you're in the Omi Alliance, so, you know, you're kind of crashing through the building, dropping like 20 stories. It's awesome, and I love it a lot. Some of the animations are a little bit clunky, but fuck, dude, the heart is here, man. This is a fucking... one of the greatest of all time final boss fights in a game that I think is alright. You know, because it's just like, it's a short game, it was made in 6 months, a lot of it feels kind of like fluff, a lot of the side content drags, but fuck, dude, if this isn't the greatest final boss in the series. And here, I'm fighting him hand to hand, it's fucking risky as shit, and then boom, I know I'm almost done, I'm about to do the final attack, boom, and yeah, that's the video. Thank you so much for watching me no damage all the boss fights in Like a Dragon Gaiden, and I'll see you next time for Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.